notice from anybody other than the victim, or a written request for notice from anybody other than the victim?
I have not.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so Mr. Jackson, the purpose of this hearing is for me to make a decision whether to release you to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, or release you on parole, division of the Texas Department of Corrections, or to transfer you to the institutional division of the Texas Department of Corrections. This hearing has to occur before your 19th birthday. I'll let you know that you do have certain rights at this hearing. You do have a right to an attorney, and Mr. Willett is your appointed attorney, as you're unable to afford one. You have a right to confrontation, so any witness that appears and testifies against you, you do have a right to cross-examine them through your attorney. You have a right to present evidence and argument, and you have a right to view any kind of examination or report that I would be able to view during this hearing. The things I will consider in this hearing is your experiences and character before and after commitment to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, the nature of your offense that you were found to have committed and the manner in which it was committed, the abilities of you to contribute to society, the protection of the victim of the offense or any members of the victim's family, the recommendations of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, County Juvenile Board, local juvenile probation department, and prosecuting attorney, the best interests of the person, and any other factor relevant to the issue to be decided. At the conclusion of the hearing, I have options, and my decisions are either to return you or to remand you to the custody of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department with the approval for release under supervision, which is parole, or without the approval for the release of person under supervision, which means I will be transferring you to the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. All right, if we're ready to proceed, are there any pre-trial matters that we need to address?
Your Honor.
Please so, Your Honor.
All right, and then, so I have a question. I have two Zoom screens that say Legina Jackson. Can I ask what those two screens are? No?
My mom, she can't hear. She can't hear.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it's two screens, but she can't hear.
Okay. Well, one is a video feed, one doesn't. I'm going to remove the non-video feed.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Does she have two devices on?
I want to say, yeah. I think she's on the tablet and then her phone. Yeah, she's in the phone.
Okay, well, it's important for the parent to be here.
Mm.
So I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. So your mom doesn't have a twin, does she? Miss Jackson? Danielle Jackson?
She don't have a twin.
Yeah, I just called her on the phone. She can't hear through the computer. She's not sure why.
All right. Well,
Would you like, since I have her on my phone on my end, would you like for me to just put this phone on speaker so she can hear it?
yeah, I may do that, or see. So
Yes, you do
Legina
have to
Jackson,
join. Okay, she may not have joined the audio. Yes, you have to click join audio. No, if you just click join audio, it should remove. Oh, it's telling her to call over internet or dial in.
call over internet.
Okay, she's on. Thank you.
Okay. Miss Legina Jackson, can you hear me now? Okay, you're on mute, but I'm just wondering if you can hear me. If you can hear me, can you give me a thumbs up? Great, thank you. All right, so now we got that working. Mr. Richmond, any pretrial matters?
I think the only thing is I'm not sure if the documentation got to counsel within like the 5 days. So if I understand Mr. Willett's ready to proceed. So if there is any issue with that, I just ask if we put the waiver on the record.
Well, you.
Yeah, I'm fine. I have it. I've read through everything, so we're ready to go.
All right. Then I have nothing else.
All right, fantastic. All right, Mr. Rich, opening statements or just go right into it?
Let's just go right into it.
Sure. Please call your first witness.
Your Honor, I call Tammy Coy to testify.
Ms. Coy, if you can raise your right hand, you unmute yourself. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial, that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. You may lower your hand. Mr. Richmond, please proceed.
Ms. Coy, what do you do for a living?
I work for the Texas Juvenile Justice Department.
What is your position there?
I oversee the Department of Sentenced Offender Disposition, and we process all sentenced offender youth in the agency.
All right. And how long have you worked there?
I've worked over 30, bless you, over 30 years.
And as part of preparing for this hearing, has the Texas Juvenile Justice Department sent to the court, I guess, essentially Damien's records from TJJD?
Yes,
And Your Honor, I believe the court has a copy of those with the court.
We do. We have two binders labeled Exhibit 1.
If they're not already part of the record, I'd ask the court to admit those as exhibits.
Mr. Willett, any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, petitioner's 1 is admitted.
And Ms. Coy, as part of this, has the Texas Juvenile Justice Department have a position on whether Damien should be released to the parole division or to the institutional division of the Texas Department of Corrections?
yes, we do.
And what is that?
TJJD's recommendation is that Damien be placed on TDCJ parole.
All right. And what is he currently adjudicated for that he is serving his commitment for?
He is currently with us on an 8-year determinate sentence for aggravated robbery.
And at the same time, he was adjudicated for unauthorized use of a vehicle and evading, correct?
Right, those aren't determinate sentenceable, but though.
Okay. And the judgment shows that the court made a deadly weapon finding as part of that. Is that also correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And on what date did he start with TJJD on this current sentence?
He was committed to us on March 28th of 2019 on this current sentence.
Okay, and then looks like you arrived, I guess, at the institution on April 3rd?
Yes, at our orientation unit.
Okay. So he's been with TJJD about 18 months?
Correct.
And prior to that, he was in custody from November 18th of 2018 while the case was pending.
Correct.
So total time in custody on this case is a little bit shy of 2 years.
Correct.
And can you describe the sort of facts of the kind of give a summary of the facts of the case for which he was adjudicated for, in the one that he's serving for?
Damien and a co-actor approached a woman in a bar parking lot. They pointed guns at her, demanding her purse and cell phone while threatening to shoot her if she did not comply. After giving her belongings, the woman went back inside to report what happened. When she returned out, she saw one of the suspects attempting to steal her vehicle. Records indicate one suspect got out of the woman's car and started firing his gun at the woman as he got into another vehicle with the other suspect.
And then they ended up stealing a different person's car, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And then they evaded police at speeds going up to 120 miles an hour.
Yes,
And it was estimated to be about a 15-minute pursuit.
I believe so.
Can you describe for the court, prior to this case, what his referral and adjudication history is?
His referral history started in May of 2014. He's got numerous prior referrals. Would you like me to read through them, or?
Yes, please.
May 2nd of 2014 for the offense of assault bodily injury to a public servant. He's got in October of 2014 burglary of a habitation. July of 2015 violation of probation for burglary of a habitation twice. August 1st of 2015 violation of probation, failure to report. August 25th of 2015 violation of probation, evading arrest. August 25th of 2015 violation of probation, failure to obey school rules. On July 29th of 2015 burglary of a habitation. August 25th evading arrest of 2015. September 28th 2015 violation of probation, electronic monitor violations. Also on September 28th, left home without permission. And then another electronic monitor violation and left home on September 28th as well that was refused and dismissed. July 9th of 2016, deadly conduct. July 9th of 2016, discharge of a firearm in certain municipalities. July 9th of 2016, theft of a firearm. July 9th of 2016, violation of probation, burglary of a habitation. July 9th, 2016, violation of probation, possession of a weapon. November 30th, 2016, violation of probation, assault bodily injury, as well on the 30th, evading arrest. December 1st, 2016, violation of probation, possession of a weapon. October 31st, 2018, aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon. November 18th of 2018, evading arrest with a vehicle, as well as unauthorized use of a motor vehicle.
For which of those offenses was he actually adjudicated for?
He was adjudicated to probation for assault bodily injury, burglary of a habitation, and then again for burglary of a habitation in the July of 2015 offenses, as well as evading arrest. His probation was extended for electronic monitor violations and the leaving home without permission. He was committed to TJJD on his first commitment on the assault of bodily injury, evading arrest, and then again on the aggravated robbery.
And, when was his first commitment to TJJD?
He was committed to TJJD on January 25th of 2017.
And that was an indeterminate commitment, correct?
Yes.
And how long did he spend there?
He received a 9-month minimum length of stay and was released to parole on August 1st of 2017. So approximately a year and 6 months, I believe.
It's about 1.5 years.
Yes.
And then he was released, looks like about 3.5 months prior to the instant offense for which was committed.
About 5 months later, yes.
Okay. How would you describe his first stay at TJJD?
His first stay at TJJD, Damien struggled. He had a lot of behavior problems and took a while to get through his treatment and to kind of start really kind of following the program.
He had 144 incident reports during his 1.5-year stay,
Yes.
and 13 were level 2 violations.
I don't recall the exact number, but that could be correct, yes.
All right, and that would include things like fighting, assault, fleeing apprehension, and participating in a major disruption.
Yes.
And his stay in TJJD was extended, I think 3 times, you said? I don't know if he's, but it was 3 times.
Yes, it was extended 3 times.
That was due to his failure to engage and not completing services.
The first 2 times, yes. The last extension was to allow him, he was almost complete with his treatment program. So that was a 30-day extension to allow him to finish that.
And while he was pending for the current offense in detention here, he was secluded 3 times for fighting and yelling gang slurs.
That I do not.
Okay. And then as part of what you have, do you have his mental health records or records, idea of what kind of mental health diagnoses he's had?
Yes.
And what are those?
He currently carries a diagnosis of conduct disorder, adolescent onset type severe, cannabis use disorder, severe in a controlled environment, and imprisonment or other incarceration.
Okay. Did he at one point have a ADHD diagnosis?
Yes.
And is that not current, or what's going on with that?
That was done, that he was given that in April of 2019 when he did his psychiatric eval. On this current evaluation that was done in August of 2020, they did not carry that diagnosis forward.
Okay. All right, so he has a number of adjudications stemming back from 2014, including some that he had an indeterminate commitment for, and then it's currently serving a 8-year sentence, which he has done about 2 years of.
Correct.
Okay. I believe those are the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Mr. Willett?
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Ms. Coy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. So I have some questions about it, and I know that I'm not trying to go the opposite way because you've said that your recommendation is for parole. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let me kind of talk to you about the cases that we have. So on this particular charge, Damien's minimum time of I guess of confinement would be 3 years. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And it looks like he's going to have about 2 done by the time his birthday would come up on the 23rd of November, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So he's about a year short, right, as far as what his minimum time would be.
Yes.
Let me ask you a little bit about some of those cases. I know that there was a bunch of things that were listed. I believe there was about 40 that were listed. Of those 40, about 11 of them, is it fair to say, were actual charges?
I believe so. Those were the ones that he was adjudicated for. The remainder were refused and dismissed.
Right. And things like electronic monitor violations, things like that. Right.
Yes.
Okay. And a lot of those, not all of them, but a lot of those even happened as young as 13. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Because the ones from 2014 were 6 years ago. He's not quite 19 yet, but if I figured it out right, I think he would have been 13 at the time. Right.
Yes.
Okay. And on the charges, I mean, is it fair to say when they were talking about some of the violations he had, those violations were from the first time he was there? Is that correct? 140 or whatever the number was?
Oh, yes. Those were on his first commitment to TJJD on the indeterminate.
Okay. And that's when he would have been about probably 15 years old, I think.
I think so.
Okay. Now, as far as the one that he's here for right now, and I know this sounds like a lot, but he had about 40, I think it was 40 incidents. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not trying to make it sound like it's a little amount, but that, relatively speaking, that's pretty small, isn't it, on some of these cases?
It can be, and it's definitely a decrease in his incidents.
Okay, so apparently something either caught his attention or at least made some kind of I guess, effort on him to do a little bit better. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And if I remember right, of the 40 that he had, there was a couple of them, and they do mean kind of different things. Like 3 of them, he actually turned himself in, right?
Possibly, yes.
Well, that they had down, they were self.
Oh, self-referrals?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
So self-referrals are when a youth asks, it's kind of a timeout. So those aren't really behavioral in nature.
Okay. And then I guess one of them, this isn't good. One was a suicidal one, correct?
Yes.
And then, and I think in the words of the report that you gave, they said the most of them were minor violations. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Now, while he was down there, there's some things that they can do, I guess, to try to improve themselves. And that's the whole purpose of being there, right? Let me ask you a little bit about that. So there was some, I guess, levels of accomplishment they need to get to. Can you tell me a little bit as far as Damien, did he complete all those levels, and when did he do that, if he did?
Yes, we have a 5-stage program. Damien has progressed in all of the stages and earned stage yes, which is our highest stage, in March of 2020.
Okay. And and maybe you can explain a little bit more, but the Sparks, what is that?
So that is a treatment program. It's structured psychotherapy for adolescents responding to chronic stress. It's for youth that have grown up in chronically stressful environments, and it teaches them how to regulate their emotions and deal with problems in a more pro-social way.
Okay. And it looks like he finished that in maybe August of 2019.
He started it in August of 2019 and successfully completed it in November of 2019.
And then let me ask you a couple of things from this year. So this year, he got his GED in April. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think he also earned 2 certificates, if I remember right. One was for forklift, which I guess I kind of get that one. The other one, I'm not sure what that is. C-Tech telecommunications?
Yes, that's a computer-based certification.
Okay. And so he's been making an effort to try to get better. And I'm sorry, there's one more too. And in fact, he completed an alcohol and drug, I guess, type of class 2 in July through August of this year?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Is it fair to say, do you think there's a kind of a difference in the last couple of years, how he treated the first time down at TJJD as compared to this one?
Yes, I believe so. A difference in that. And I think he's noted it as well in talking with people.
Okay. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm looking at your report. I believe that you said Damien has demonstrated ability to use his skills learned in treatment to help him not just stay out of trouble, but to change his perspective.
Mr. Willett, if you can go back and start over, let's slow down.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Ms. Coy, I believe that you had even put in your report, and I don't know if this is a quote, but something that was written there. It says, Damien has demonstrated an ability to use the skills learned in treatment to help him not just stay out of trouble, but to change his perspective regularly and his potential success. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I believe that's a quote from the psychological evaluation.
Okay. And I know there's always some risk that kids will come back in here. I mean, nobody knows for sure, but I believe that on the totality of everything, I guess that's considered a moderate risk. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I believe, I'm looking to see. Yes, she had him noted as a moderate.
Okay. And I don't know how much of the 800 and I think it's 25 pages that we have in here that you went through, and I'm going to refer you to the pages, and I'm not saying that necessarily you'll remember those, but if you look at page 520, there's some talk in there. It looks like when they were talking to Damien, and honestly, he seemed a little bit distraught and almost ready to give up, if you'd agree with that or not. It's kind of at the
520 in the
520, page 520 on the
Sure.
top where it says summary.
Yes.
About the first paragraph.
Is it the long one or
The long one. I'm kind of paraphrasing about the
Yes.
first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 7 lines, right?
Yes.
It looks like he's pretty frustrated and he just wants to give up at that point.
I don't know if he was so much frustrated as
No,
I think
I'm
he was-
sorry. I gave you the wrong page. 529.
I was going, no, that,
Yeah. Judge Kim's looking the same way. Like, what are you talking about? No, I'm sorry. 529. It looks like he's given up off of that a little bit.
okay, where he was worried he wasn't going to promote and
Right. And he said, just send me to prison. I'm just ready to go at this point. All right. That was from March of this year. And then page 520, if we go to that one, we can see that in that last couple of months, I think when maybe the time was a little bit closer to this hearing, it looks like his attitude certainly has improved a lot. Is that pretty fair to say?
yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I have anything else to ask you. If he was granted parole, what were the I guess what were some of the conditions or treatment summary that would like to be seen done?
Yes. So if granted parole, he would be placed on super intensive supervision, which is the highest level of supervision that TDCJ has. It's electronic monitoring with GPS locations. It's basically house arrest where the youth has to make a complete schedule for the following week with their parole officer and is not allowed to deviate from that schedule. You'd only be allowed out of the home to go to school, work, counseling, or church. So that would be the most, and that's the strictest that they have. He would also participate in substance abuse programming, anger management counseling, gang conditions, and gainful employment.
Okay. So pretty much he's either got to be one of 3 places, it sounds like, either homeschool or at work,
Yes.
right? Okay. And he does have a place to live, right? I know he's going to be 19, but he has a place to live, and who's that going to be with?
With his mother.
Okay. So I guess the things are set in place if he is on parole to hopefully make him successful. And would you agree with me? It looks like he certainly has a better attitude and better skill set to be able to do that at this point.
Yes.
Pass the witness, Shauna.
Mr. Richmond, redirect.
Ms. Coy, during his current stay, he had fewer incidents, but he did have a handful of level 2. Is that correct?
Yes.
And a couple of them involved fighting, no bodily injury. One of those had an exposure in it. 2 of them were fleeing apprehension. That seems to be the ones he had, correct?
Yes.
And those were in April and one in June of 2019.
Correct.
And it looks like prior to the psychological, his last incident was May 12th of 20, correct?
Yes.
You talked about the recommendation is for him to be on the super intensive supervision.
Yes, sir.
What percentage of parolees are either on that or start with that when they're paroled from TJJD to TDC parole?
So I don't have an actual number, but all youth that go to release transfer hearings at age 19, like Damien, we request that on all youth. We're asking for a waiver on that minimum.
So all the youth who are getting paroled, that's part of the services that is part of TJJD's parole plan.
Yeah, but only for youth that do hearings. We do have youth that parole directly out of the facility without a hearing that don't go on SISP.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Those are the questions I have. Thank you.
Cross, Mr. Willett.
No, Your Honor, I'm good.
Ms. Coy, course, I have questions for you. First of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I always believe that everyone should have their birthday off from work, but I guess Governor Abbott doesn't agree. All right, so how long, so when was he on the indeterminate sentence with a 9-month minimum period of commitment? He was paroled. How long was he on? When was he paroled? That's my question.
He was paroled on August 1st of 2018.
And the offense date for this offense was, I see the commitment date is March 28th.
March, so it was October, end of October.
Of 18, so it was he was on parole for 2 months when this offense occurred?
Almost 3, but yes.
All right, so you have the master file with you, right?
Yes, sir.
Page 115, the social history.
Yes.
And then I see in there an offense history. Pull this up. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was a note to myself. All right, let's go to page 193. Do we happen to know? It said the victim's Mark VC. Is that Congressman Mark VC?
I do not know.
Yes, sir, it is.
It is? Okay. All right. All right, so going on to page 200. This is an entry by Miss Guerrero. And so let me ask you this. On this master file, right now we're in this section where Tarrant County sends their documents to you, correct?
Yes.
So your knowledge is basically it was given to you, but you don't have background knowledge about the actual offenses here?
Correct.
Okay. Then, okay, I'm gonna skip a lot of this then. All right, so let's go forward to page 309, because you wouldn't be able to answer the questions I have for those.
Yes, sir.
So on page 309, we're at the clinical interview, and he's talking about him owing his cousin money. And that was the source of this. I'm trying to figure out, through all the interviews and all the intake that y'all did, do we know, was there ever an admission of who actually shot the gun?
I want to say that I recall seeing that he noted that the co-actor fired the gun.
Did he ever tell us where the gun came from?
I don't know if that was specifically asked.
All right. If we can go to page 368. So this is a incident report.
368?
Correct. Page 368, evidently, Mr. Jackson threw a computer and a chair at one of the teachers. It's towards the bottom.
Yes, I do see that.
Okay. Were charges ever filed for something like this?
It looks like it says that the SPU adjudicated for the offense, for that offense.
There was never a criminal case?
Um,
And when you say adjudicated, that means that there was some kind of hearing
yes,
and maybe some kind of sanction within TJJD?
yes, possibly. Let me see if I can. That would have been before he came to us as well.
Oh, okay.
On the second time.
This is April of 19 is the date that I see.
Right, right. But it was on October 23rd, the SPU.
Oh, okay. So
Did you
this is
see
just
that?
an assessment based off of what happened during his first trip to TJJD.
I believe so.
So I'm going to move on to page 400. And it's a psychological evaluation. More specifically on page 403, there is a chart, and this is on intake. So this talks about, I believe, this is early on his referrals or the crons. So I found this chart very helpful. Do y'all not do this at the end, like when it comes close to discharge or a parole transfer hearing?
It is, that is just something that's taken out of our electronic system. It shows you the days and how many 225s and referrals. So we do have that, and we could definitely use that in the future too.
I think that was something that would be helpful for all judges across the state on these.
Sure.
And I found this is the first time I've seen one, and I think that's something that every judge would appreciate if they saw, because it kind of tells you where they were. If you know which units are more high security or not, it kind of sees a pattern of behavior based on time.
Right.
So this is more of a question because I'm curious. On page 457, there's a mention of TJG officers having body-worn cameras. Do all the security officers at TJJD have body-worn cameras?
Yes, they do.
All right, so this is kind of a conflict I ran into on page 642.
Yes.
So it's an interview. This is getting, I believe it's kind of getting prepared for parole the first time. And so here in the interview, Mr. Jackson is saying that he's not recognizing his bad behavior. He couldn't explain his current behavior, including the assaultive incidences, why he's being referred to RDP, and he's blaming staff members for behavior. So we see all this, but yet he was paroled. At what point, does TJJD just parole kids because it's time?
Well, they, so when it's an indeterminate offender, they go through the release review panel, and they're reviewed at their initial minimum length of stay, and they're going to look at everything. And on his first extension, due to he wasn't completing his treatment and not complying with the rules and placed on redirect, they extended him 4 months due to that in November of 2017. Then they review them again at their next extension to see if they've made progress, what they're going to do. So he had his second review in March of 2018, and they reviewed him. He was still needing to do his specialized treatment. And so he had a 3-month extension. Then he was reviewed again at the end of that. He was very close to finishing his treatment. They gave him a 30-day extension to allow him to solidify his plans to return home, finish his treatment, and was released in August. So it's multiple. They're going to review the youth, and if they don't release, they will continue to review at those next extension dates and make decisions on their progress.
So this was an October 2018 interview, so, or 2017. So it seemed like this is kind of the basis of not paroling him, and he slowly got better.
Right. So that was, and that would have been prior to his first extension where they extended him in November.
All right, so you don't have to find the pages, but on September 3rd of 2020, which is page 744, it talks about he doesn't care about a 225. On February 26th of 2020, he says, I don't give a fuck about a write-up. Like I'm looking at these, like, do we inform the children that write-ups, I mean, they know that these all come to the judge, correct?
They do.
Like all the 225s. Okay. Because then on page 777, it says, I don't give a fuck about a 225, right at Ho. All right, so on page 812, 813, and 814, it keeps on referencing a 10-80. What's a 10-80?
You know, it's been a few years since I've used my 10 codes, and I don't recall off the top of my head what a 1080 is.
Just a radio 10 code?
Yes, it's a radio 10 code.
All right, no, that's fine. All right, so this one had me puzzled. Starting at age 814, there's a 225 incident report talking about Mr. Jackson climbing on top of the roof and refused to get down. And actually specifically says, on CRIP, there's nothing you can say to get me off. You're wasting your breath. I have 8 years, I'm a DSO. And so I understand kids can get on roofs, but that happened with only 2 weeks before on page 823. He's also on the roof. Like what, why are these children on roofs?
So, well, they're not there. Sometimes we do.
You broke up for a second. You said they're not what?
They're not, I said they're not supposed to be up there. Sometimes we do have times when kids will be disruptive, run up, jump on the roofs, and we will have to work to get them back down. And sometimes you kind of see it in patterns.
I just don't understand. Like, so if we know kids jump on the roof, why don't we put a barrier so they can't jump on the roof?
There are barriers to them, but sometimes depending on the terrain, how it is, where it's at, they're still able to try and get up there.
So I'm concerned there's Crip gang affiliation when he was referred in that I see from the Tarrant County documentation. And then it seems like on several dates, I'm seeing he keeps on referring to gang activity. And then it just kind of disappears. I'm trying to figure out like exactly what, I mean, I think he's claimed that he's out. Like he just told them, hey, I don't want to be part of this anymore. And then it seems like TJJD kind of dropped it. Like, I don't think that's the way it works, right? I mean, you can't just say, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I mean, it seems like there's no follow-up on his gang affiliation or activity. There's some mention of it inside TJJD.
Right.
I mean, do we know, like, I mean, did he do a gang intervention program there? Is this a concern going forward?
He did not do the intervention program. I don't know if it was available at MART. It would have been something they would have also worked on in just his regular programming. When you see mentions of it in documentation, it's normally going to be because if he said something, but not necessarily, they're not going to document that he's not having those types of problems. But it would be something that they would work on when he's doing his reentry plan as well.
So I'm trying to, and this one is actually a big concern to me. So we have in April of 19, after he was committed the second time, we have these incidences where he tried to escape, right? And I'm trying to figure this out. Like, I guess he took the keys and tried to run off, like open the door and run off. Like, I mean, was there any sanction from that? Is there any kind of, because I couldn't find that. I just saw the report and I didn't see what happened after that.
What was the date of that report?
So I saw two references of fleeing apprehension. One is April 16th, 2019, and one is April 30th of 2019.
So he had a level 2 found true on April 16th for fleeing apprehension. And then April 16th. April 16th is that where he climbed on the roof when he was at Ron Jackson?
So the April 16th, they're saying he climbed the roof, and that's when he went all the way to the edge, I guess jumped down, and they had to take him. Right? If I remember that one right. I have a roof incident on April 6th on page
Yes.
823.
And that would be the incident that was, sorry, there's multiple places I have to look to get corresponding numbers. So yes, that would have been the level 2 that was held on April 16th for the April 6th incident.
So one is he ran on the roof. I guess he jumped down from the roof.
Yes.
And was that outside the perimeter then?
No, that would have been inside the perimeter at Ron Jackson, but the way the dorms and the buildings are, they're much lower. And so that was one of the dorms that on the trust dorm, I think is what I saw.
The other one is where there's one of the security officers was interrupting a fight and dropped the keys, and then Mr. Jackson picked up the keys and tried to unlock the doors and escape. I think that would be April 30th.
April 30th, okay. So on April 30th, he did have a level 2 hearing that corresponds to the incident number 149, which happened on April 24th.
That's April 24th is a I'm looking at the 225
Yes.
for April 24th, which is page 814, and that's the roof. I'm trying to figure out where he tried to get he got the keys and tried to escape.
Okay. And I just looked at something that I misspoke earlier. He did complete the gang intervention program. He was in it from June 9th of 2019 to September 10th of 2019. Sorry about that.
Okay, I'm glad he finished it.
So April 24th, okay. Okay. Sorry, it took me a minute to find it. Right, so that's the one that was found true on April 30th, the level 2 that was found true.
What was the date of that?
It was the April 24th, 2019 incident number 149 on page 814. That was the one that was for the level 2 on April 30th.
That's for getting on the roof, right? I'm trying to find the one where he took the keys and tried to escape.
On that one running.
I don't think I'm confusing cases. I've written down that there were two fleeing apprehension, one April 16th and one April 30th, that he had level 2 hearings for.
Looking as well.
April 6th, where he's on the roof.
Oh, the keys incident.
Yes.
That was, it's noted in the psychiatric, sorry, we've got a brand new puppy. And that's in the psychiatric notes, and that was from his first placement, his initial commitment. It's on page 631 through 34.
Okay, so that's first commitment. Okay, thanks for my question. Just as a courtesy, I always, after I ask questions, I always give the attorneys a chance to follow up with anything. Mr. Richmond, do you have any follow-up questions to mine?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Willett, do you have any follow-up questions to mine?
Your Honor, just quickly, I want to make sure I've got the dates right. So the incidents that we've kind of been talking about here lately were either from the first time he was in detention, or they were from April of 2019. Is that correct?
Well, the first time, the key incident was his first commitment, and then the other fleeing apprehensions were in April of last year on the DSO commitment, yes.
Okay, so the last of these major incidents was about a year and a half ago?
Yes, it was in June of 2019 for fighting.
Okay, and just so I have it clear, because you said he had completed the gang intervention, all the gang-related things that were said were all before he had completed that class, or those classes, is that right?
Ones that we were talking about, yes.
Okay, that's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Richmond, please call your next witness.
State rest.
All right. Mr. Willett, do you want to proceed or take a short recess? It's up to you.
Yeah, Your Honor, could I get a breakout with him just to kind of tell him what we're doing? And
Absolutely. I'm going to create the breakout room. Who all would you like to invite in there, Mr. Willett?
have this mom come on too. Obviously, she needs to hear what I'm saying.
Regina Jackson and Washington. Okay, the invitation is sent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone else, we can just take a short recess, probably 10 minutes. All right, I think we're back. And all right, so if I recall, Mr. Richmond had rested. Mr. Willett.
Thank you, Your Honor. We got a chance to go in the breakout room. I discussed with his mother and him as far as his right to testify, if he needed to testify or not. After doing that, it is my understanding he is not going to testify. So at this point, the respondent rests.
Okay, thank you. All right. I guess we lost the sister, and if she was here watching, okay. Closing arguments?
Thank you, Your Honor. The stay requests that the court deny parole and send him to the institutional division. When it comes to this, he is serving a 8-year sentence for which he's done about a quarter of on an offense that's pretty aggravated. It's an aggravated robbery, but one which not only involved guns, but one of which shots were fired. And then I think when they were apprehending him later, did a very dangerous high-speed chase going 120 miles an hour, and it was a pretty long, 15 minutes is a pretty long chase. And this kind of caps a history of going back to 2014 with multiple assaultive or burglary related offenses, and a lot of violation of court orders. So basically since 2014 up until very recently, it's been a pretty consistent pattern of misconduct, including violent behavior. In addition, he's done a prior TJJD stay, didn't do very well, and then very shortly after getting out, 2 or 3 months later, committed the instant offenses for which he has been adjudicated for and is serving time. Now, I won't take away from him. Very recently, during his time, he's done some things that seem to show that he's turning it around, getting to level yes, completing interventions, and all the plans. But I would note that his turnaround is really the last year of his life. I think the court was going through some of the behavioral, and while the level 2s are all look like April, May, the court noted some other ones. And I think the October 27th, 2019, where he was commenting out pulling a hit on someone and making a comment about the everyday crip, lib, bad word starting with a B, indicates that his leaving this lifestyle behind is a kind of a recent development only over the past year. And prior to that, it was, again, a lot of bad conduct and violent conduct. So we look at the totality, the nature of the offense. I think it's serving a quarter of the time of that 8-year sentence, which with the deadly weapon finding would normally, I believe, give him, I think they said his minimum was 3. My understanding is deadly weapon finding gives a minimum of generally half that time. I think it's just not enough. He's not enough time for this offense, and the turnaround's a little bit too recent comparative to the pattern that we've had so far to say that now's the time to parole him. So based on all that, Your Honor, I'd ask that you deny parole and send him to the institutional division of TDC. Unless you have further questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Willett.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, obviously, we are in juvenile court, not in adult court, and there's a reason why we have these hearings set up like this. And as the court knows, that the minimum sentence is 3 years here. In fact, there is no minimum when it comes to juvenile cases compared to adult. Yes, in adult court, it would be half the time, but here that doesn't apply. And I'd also submit that I understand in the adult world, 1.5 years, 2 years really doesn't show a whole lot of pattern of good behavior. But we're working in the juvenile world where when you're only 13 through 16, 17, 1.5 years is a lifetime. That is a lifetime of things that you're doing. And I guess there's a reason why we have these hearings. And from Damien's standpoint, he has done whatever he could do. I couldn't write a better ending to his story. I mean, it certainly could have been better during the middle of it, But in the last year, he has done everything he's supposed to. He's gotten his GED. He's had 2 certificates. He's made an effort. He's got through level yes. He's done drug treatment. He's done gang treatment. He's done everything that's been asked of him. And yes, he had problems to begin with, but it's how he finished that to me should matter. And he's finished very strong. If the court has some concerns, that's why the recommendation was the most serious type of parole he could be on the supervision, where basically he has 3 places to go. It's either home, school, or work, and that's it. And I don't think there's any problems with that. And obviously, if there is, then he knows where he's going to be back to. And the next time it won't be back in front of you. It's going to be, you know, he would have problems with the adult system, and that's where we'd end up. So the recommendation of TJJD was, in fact, to allow him to get parole. In their own words, it looks like he's learned what he needed to learn from it. And not only that, but to avoid any future problems too. So we would just ask that you follow the recommendation and grant him parole in this case.
Thank you. So the court, having considered all the competent evidence provided, has considered the experiences and character of the person before and after commitment to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, the nature of the penal offense that the person was found to have committed, and the manner in which the offense was committed, the abilities of the person to contribute to society, the protection of the victim of the offense or any members of the victim's family, the recommendations of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, County Juvenile Board, local juvenile probation department, and prosecuting attorney, the best interests of the person, and any other factor relevant to the issue to be decided, will order the return of the person to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department without the approval for release of the person under supervision. Mr. Jackson, I am not granting you parole, and I want to give you the courtesy and the respect to explain why I'm making my decision so you understand and can go forward with this. Mr. Jackson, the reason why I'm doing this is I see you had trouble on your first stint in TJJD. I get that. You were out. There was mistakes made. I'm not really holding that much against you. All right. I understand that you got recommitted. Now, when you're recommitted the second time, there were quite a few instances that you had quite a few 225s. My deep concern on this one is you making threats like that you're going to put a hit out on some of the staff at TJJD, that you keep on making gang references, that you keep on saying that you're going to knock the shit out of the staff. You had all kinds of problems, and a lot of it was based on violence. And that gives me a lot of concern because of the nature of the offense that you're here, right? This is an aggravated robbery with actual shots fired where a person or multiple people could have died. Let me explain how this plays out in my mind. What you have shown me in your behavior is that you are willing to participate in behavior that can take somebody's life, whether it be yours because somebody returns fire, or somebody else's because you or your partner decide to shoot a gun at people. That being said, if that is where I'm starting, the minimum level, I know you are willing to participate in that kind of risky behavior. My concern is if I was to parole you and you return to the behavior, that is back to where we return. This isn't one of those where there was a BB gun that was made to look like a gun, or you were just caught up. You actually evidently had a firearm in your hand. Whether you or your partner shot it, the fact is gunshots were fired, and the people you were running with are willing to take somebody's life. So if that's kind of the baseline that you've shown me, I'm worried that if you violate your parole, that's where we're starting. We're not going to go back to a simple possession or criminal mischief or the minor crimes. We're going to some very serious crimes that there is a duty for me to protect the public. What I've seen is that your behavior is linked to your fear of consequences. I think that this has been your motivation throughout your time with the juvenile justice system. The problem of this is we're basing this on your past offenses. Your bad decisions are major bad decisions. If your prior commitment was based on non-life threatening issues, I would be more comfortable paroling you because I do recognize that since about February to May, you really change your behavior and turn things around. However, if I was to parole you and you lost control at this point, I know you are capable of killing someone. Not that you would, but you have that within you based on your current offense. I'm not comfortable taking that risk with you because of the seriousness of the nature of the offense that you currently committed. You've made some grown-up decisions, and there's grown-up consequences to those decisions. Shooting at someone that was just robbed, that's not juvenile behavior, that's definitely adult behavior. That being said, Mr. Richmond was talking about 4 years being the minimum. That is what's happening on a 3G level offense, okay? Part of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. What that means is on an 8-year sentence, you would have to do 4 years. There is no parole for 3G offenses. There is a mandatory release. And so once you hit the 4-year mark of time served, then you would get released, assuming you don't pick up a case while you're at TDC. You do get credit for the time that you spent in. So you do have 2 years of credit. So it would be 2 more years, which effectively places you at 21, which also makes me a little more comfortable with that because that gives you more time to mature. Again, I do recognize that you turned your life around toward the end. That's what's giving me hesitation. Even if you can't tell, it does give me pause and make me reconsider this decision very carefully. However, your initial behavior at TJJD on your second trip really worries me because there were violent threats. And that our conversation that we had in this courtroom in Fort Worth, when I specifically remember telling you, you need to show me and turn your life around and do things right for me because we will meet again. At the beginning, I don't think you took me seriously. I think you started to as time went by. I'm afraid that I may be wrong, that you actually are rehabilitated and there's a change of heart. But when I weigh that against the chance that you are not rehabilitated, you come out and you start at the same level of offense that you went to TJJD for, then the danger to the community and the negative possibilities far outweigh the benefits of releasing you on parole. I don't expect you to agree with me, but I hope you understand what my reasoning is. And at the least, I hope you appreciate the fact that I'm taking the time to explain this to you rather than just making my decision and ending this hearing. Now, because I do believe you have a right to appeal this decision. If you cannot afford an attorney, I'll provide an attorney for you. Mr. Willett, you have the duty of informing him of his right to appeal. Okay, right. Mr. Willett, I don't disagree with your argument at all. This really, in this particular case, this really goes down to element B, which is the nature of the penal offense. The fact that gunshots were fired is the part that I cannot overcome. Right? That's just too much of a burden for me or for anyone. All right. So, Ms. Jackson, I apologize. I know you're disappointed. Mr. Jackson, I know you're disappointed as well. I hope that your time at TCC goes fast, that you are actually able to do well, and that you are not a danger to the community when you get out. All right. Is there anything that I've missed, Mr. Willett?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Richmond, anything that I've missed?
I don't believe so. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. That'll be the order of the court.
Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Coy.
Sorry, I realized I hit the wrong button.
Oh, no.